Hello, and welcome back to my channel, fellow travelers through time. Get ready for a journey that will challenge your perceptions of innovation and the very timeline of progress. Tonight, we delve into the annals of antiquity, not just to recount forgotten tales, but to uncover astonishing inventions from civilizations long past that uncannily predicted the technological marvels of our present and future. From the subtle whispers of early engineering to the grand designs of ancient minds, prepare to witness how our ancestors' ingenuity laid the blueprints for the world we inhabit today. Their foresight wasn't magic, but a testament to the enduring human spirit of creation. Before you get comfortable, if you enjoy what I do here, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. It's always fascinating to see our global community. Now, dim the lights and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine diving into the stormy waters of the Mediterranean, seeking refuge, only to stumble upon a treasure that would rewrite history. That's exactly what happened in the year 1900. Near the Greek island of Antikythera, a group of sponge divers discovered an ancient Roman shipwreck. Lost to the sea since the 1st century BCE, they brought up stunning statues, pottery, and jewelry. But among the haul was a corroded, unassuming lump of bronze and wood, initially mistaken for just another rock. Little did they know, this rock held a secret so profound, it would force us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. This is the story of the Antikythera mechanism. What is it? Simply put, it's the world's first known analog computer. A celestial calculator so far ahead of its time, its rediscovery was like finding a smartphone in a Roman ruin. In an age without electricity, without microchips, ancient Greek engineers created a device that could predict the future. This shoebox-sized marvel of gears and dials was designed to track the sun and moon, forecast eclipses, and even set the dates for the ancient Olympic Games. Its complexity and precision wouldn't be seen again for another 1,500 years. It is a testament to a level of scientific and engineering genius we never thought possible for that era. When the first fragments were brought to the surface, encrusted and corroded after 2 millennia underwater, they gave no clue to the wonders hidden inside. It was a puzzle that would take over a century to solve. Scientists had to use cutting-edge technology, like advanced X-ray scanning and 3D imaging, to digitally peel back the layers of time. What they found was breathtaking. A complex system of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth as tiny as a millimeter wide, all crafted with astonishing precision. This intricate gear train, operated by a simple hand crank, moved a series of pointers across different faces of the device, displaying astronomical cycles with incredible accuracy. The sheer ingenuity of its design, including a differential gear, a component thought to have been invented 1,000 years later, speaks to a mastery of mechanics that was truly lost to time. But the Antikythera mechanism wasn't just a beautiful model of the cosmos. It was a powerful predictive tool. By turning the crank, an ancient user could see where the sun, moon, and planets would be years in the future. It could accurately predict both solar and lunar eclipses, even accounting for the subtle irregularities in the moon's orbit. To do this, the device incorporated some of the most complex astronomical knowledge of the time, like the 223-month Saros cycle for eclipses and the 19-year Metonic cycle for the calendar. The ability to encode this deep scientific understanding into a physical, mechanical device is what makes it so revolutionary. It wasn't just observing the heavens. It was calculating their dance. So, who was the genius behind this incredible machine? The truth is, we don't know for sure. But the clues point us in a fascinating direction. Inscriptions on the device use a calendar specific to Corinth and its colonies, including the city of Syracuse in Sicily. This was the home of the legendary Archimedes, the brilliant mathematician, physicist, and engineer. While the shipwreck dates to a century after his death, it's widely believed that the mechanism comes from a school of thought he established. Imagine a workshop of brilliant minds, continuing Archimedes' legacy, building upon his knowledge of mechanics and gearing to create this masterpiece. Others suggest the astronomer Hipparchus, who lived closer to the time the device was made and was known for his work on predicting eclipses. Whoever the creator was, they were part of an elite scientific community in the Greek world, possessing knowledge we once thought impossible for the era. The discovery of the Antikythera mechanism completely shattered the conventional timeline of technological progress. Before this, historians believed that complex gear trains and precision engineering didn't appear until the magnificent clocks of the Islamic Golden Age and the European Renaissance. This single device pushes back the invention of key mechanical concepts by over a millennium. It suggests the existence of a highly advanced tradition of mechanical engineering in the ancient world that was somehow lost. Why? Perhaps libraries were burned, skilled artisans were lost in wars, or the specific knowledge was simply not passed down. The mechanism is a ghost from a lost world of science, a tantalizing hint of what else might have been forgotten. The level of craftsmanship is just as mind-boggling as the science behind it. The bronze gears were cut with a uniformity that suggests the use of specialized tools we didn't think existed back then. The entire mechanism was housed in a wooden case, which not only protected the delicate inner workings, but also served as a user manual. Its surfaces were covered with thousands of characters of inscribed text, explaining how to operate the device and what its various dials showed. These inscriptions, painstakingly deciphered over decades, are a Rosetta Stone of ancient Greek astronomy, confirming its purpose as a serious scientific instrument. What's more, this wasn't just a static object to be admired. It was interactive. By turning the crank, a user could actively explore the cosmos. You could fast forward or rewind time, watching how the celestial bodies moved in relation to one another. This suggests it might have been used as a teaching tool, a way for an expert to demonstrate the complex motions of the heavens to students or wealthy patrons. It was an early form of scientific simulation, allowing people to visualize and interact with data in a way that was nothing short of revolutionary for its time. The story of the Antikythera mechanism is one of incredible loss, and even more incredible rediscovery. For 2,000 years, this pinnacle of ancient technology lay silent on the ocean floor, its secrets perfectly preserved by the sea. Its re-emergence in the 20th century was a shock to the system, a powerful reminder that human history isn't always a straight line of progress. There are peaks of brilliance, periods of decline, and moments when forgotten knowledge can suddenly reappear, changing our entire understanding of the past. While it didn't directly lead to the digital age, the Antikythera mechanism is the spiritual ancestor of the modern computer. It embodies the very same fundamental idea, using a machine to automate complex calculations and model reality. Our computers use silicon and binary code. The mechanism used bronze and gears. But the core principle of programming, a physical device to process information and predict outcomes, is strikingly similar. It foreshadowed the astronomical clocks, the mechanical calculators, and ultimately, the very concept of a machine that thinks. Today, the Antikythera mechanism continues to inspire. It is a symbol of the timeless human quest to understand the universe and to build tools that expand our intellectual reach. It shows us that true innovation can appear in the most unexpected of times and places. It's a silent, corroded artifact that speaks volumes about the heights of human ingenuity and the mysteries that still lie hidden in the depths of our own history. Thank you so much for watching. If you were as amazed by this story as I am, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the wonders of the past. See you next time. When you picture Roman engineering, what comes to mind? Is it the majestic arches of the aqueducts stretching across valleys? Or maybe the colossal grandeur of the Colosseum, echoing with the ghosts of gladiators? Perhaps it's the straight, enduring roads that connected an empire. For centuries, these structures have stood as a testament to Roman ingenuity. But the real secret to their incredible longevity isn't just the design. It's the very material they're made of. I'm talking about Roman concrete, an invention so advanced, it possessed qualities we're still trying to replicate today, including the almost magical ability to heal itself. This wasn't just some primitive mix of rocks and mortar. Roman concrete was a revolutionary material, especially a specific type made with volcanic ash, known as pozzolana. This ingredient was the game changer. It allowed the Romans to build structures that not only defied the limits of their time, but in some cases, even outperform our modern materials. So, what was the secret formula that made Roman concrete so extraordinary? Unlike the Portland cement we use today, which is made by firing limestone and clay at incredibly high temperatures, the Roman recipe was different. They mixed lime, seawater, volcanic rock, and that crucial ingredient, volcanic ash or pozzolana. This ash, named after the town of Pozzuoli near Mount Vesuvius, triggers a special chemical reaction. When mixed with lime and seawater, it doesn't just dry. It forms a new, incredibly stable mineral compound. This is called a pozzolanic reaction, and it meant that the concrete didn't just harden, it actually grew stronger over time, especially when exposed to water. This made it the perfect material for building in the sea, which is why Roman harbors and piers have withstood the corrosive power of salt water for 2,000 years. Modern scientists have been fascinated by this. They've taken samples from ancient Roman sea walls and put them under the microscope. What they found is astonishing. Instead of breaking down, the Roman concrete was actively getting stronger. As seawater seeped into tiny cracks, it reacted with the pozzolanic material, causing new interlocking crystals, like tobermorite and philipsite, to grow. These crystals filled the gaps, effectively healing the concrete and making it even more resilient. It's a natural self-healing mechanism, a feature that engineers today are working tirelessly to recreate. Imagine a bridge or a dam that could repair its own cracks. The Romans, in a way, already had it. You can see the stunning results of this technology in the heart of Rome itself. The Pantheon, with its breathtaking, unreinforced concrete dome, is a perfect example. Completed around 126 AD, it remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. To build it, Roman engineers were masters of material science. They used heavier concrete with dense aggregates at the base, and then switched to lighter materials, like porous pumice stone, towards the top to reduce the weight. The dome's incredible survival, enduring earthquakes and the elements for nearly 2 millennia, is a direct result of the superior quality of Roman concrete. A modern dome of that size would need a complex skeleton of steel reinforcement and would likely be crumbling by now. The invention of concrete completely transformed Roman construction. Before this, building on a massive scale meant slowly and painstakingly carving and lifting huge stone blocks. But concrete could be mixed on site and poured into molds or formwork. This freed architects to create the sweeping arches, soaring vaults, and massive domes that became the signature of Roman architecture. It made construction faster, cheaper, and more versatile. This efficiency wasn't just an architectural advantage. It was a strategic one. It allowed the Romans to rapidly build the infrastructure, the bridges, aqueducts, and fortifications that held their vast empire together. Perhaps the most mind-blowing application was their underwater construction. Roman engineers built enormous sophisticated harbors, like the one at Caesarea Maritima in the open sea. How did they do it? They would construct huge wooden containers, float them into position, and sink them. Then they simply poured their pozzolana concrete mix inside. Miraculously, the concrete didn't just set underwater. The seawater was a key part of the chemical reaction that made it incredibly hard and durable, forming a single, rock-solid mass. This mastery of marine engineering was fundamental to their naval power and their dominance of trade across the Mediterranean. It was a display of practical chemistry that was centuries ahead of its time. There's also an environmental lesson here. While the Romans weren't thinking about carbon footprints, their concrete was inherently sustainable simply because it lasted so long. Structures built 2,000 years ago are still standing, requiring minimal maintenance. Compare that to modern concrete, which often has a design life of only 50 to 100 years before needing major repairs or replacement. Furthermore, producing modern Portland cement is an energy-intensive process that releases huge amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. The Roman method, while still requiring kilns to produce lime, relied on a naturally occurring volcanic ash, avoiding the need for extreme high-temperature firing. In our search for greener building materials, the ancient Roman recipe offers some profound inspiration. So, if this technology was so great, what happened to it? After the Western Roman Empire collapsed, this advanced knowledge was lost for over 1,000 years. Throughout the Middle Ages, builders went back to using basic mortar and cut stone. The grand scale and durability of Roman construction couldn't be replicated. It wasn't until the 18th century that engineers began to rediscover the principles of hydraulic cements that could harden underwater. This long gap, this dark age for concrete, really highlights just how far ahead the Romans were and how fragile technological knowledge can be. Today, the race is on to fully reverse engineer Roman concrete. Scientists and engineers are studying its mineral structure and chemical composition, not just for history's sake, but for our future. The goal is to learn from these ancient masters to create a new generation of concrete one that is more durable, more sustainable, and maybe, just maybe, can heal itself. This research is leading to innovations like geopolymers and other low-carbon cements that mimic the natural pozzolanic reactions the Romans harnessed so brilliantly. The story of Roman concrete is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most futuristic ideas can be found in the distant past. It shows us how a deep, practical understanding of nature and a willingness to experiment can lead to innovations that echo through eternity. From the majestic curve of an aqueduct to the silent strength of a seawall, Roman concrete carries a timeless lesson about how to build for the future. It's a legacy written not in stone, but in a material far more remarkable. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into ancient engineering as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. We'll see you in the next video, long before the first microchip was ever imagined, and centuries before the Industrial Revolution. A fascinating dream took hold in the minds of our ancestors. The dream of creating life from inanimate objects. This wasn't just a fantasy. Ancient civilizations were utterly captivated by the idea of automatons, mechanical beings that could move, act, and even think on their own. This obsession pushed the boundaries of engineering, laying the very first stones on the path to modern robotics and artificial intelligence. These ancient marvels, though simple by today's standards, were the earliest prophecies of a future filled with intelligent machines. They show us a timeless human desire to automate, to create, and to breathe a spark of life into our own creations. Our journey begins in the realm of myth. The ancient Greeks told stories of Hephaestus, the divine blacksmith, who forged golden handmaidens to assist him in his workshop. These weren't just statues. They could move, speak, and even reason. He also created Talos, a colossal bronze giant who patrolled the shores of Crete, hurling rocks at any ship that dared to approach. These incredible tales, while mythical, planted a powerful idea in the collective imagination. The idea that beings not born of flesh and blood could still possess lifelike abilities. This set the stage for real-world engineers to turn these fantasies into tangible reality. And they did. Let's travel to the 1st century A.D., to the bustling city of Alexandria, home to a brilliant inventor named Hero. Hero wasn't a storyteller. He was an engineer, and his writings are like a blueprint for an ancient technological revolution. he designed devices that would feel magical even today. Imagine walking up to a temple, and as a priest lights a fire on the altar, the massive doors swing open on their own, as if by divine will. This wasn't a miracle. It was Hiro's genius at work. The fire heated the air in a hidden chamber, which pushed water into a bucket, creating a counterweight that pulled the doors open. When the fire died down, the process reversed, and the doors slowly closed. He also invented the world's first vending machine, a device that dispensed holy water when you inserted a coin. These weren't just clever toys. They were sophisticated machines powered by air, water, and gravity, demonstrating a deep understanding of physics and automation. But Hiro's most mind-blowing creation was arguably his automatic theater. Picture a small wooden cabinet that, once set in motion, could perform an entire 10-minute play all by itself. Using a complex system of ropes, weights, and gears, figures would move across a stage, scenery would change, and even sound effects would be produced. This was, in essence, the world's first programmable animation, a mechanical ancestor to modern cinema and animatronics. The ability to choreograph a complex sequence of actions without any human intervention was a monumental leap forward, prefiguring the very concept of a computer program. And Hiro wasn't alone. Other Hellenistic inventors, like Ctesibius, created incredible water clocks that featured moving figures striking gongs on the hour, truly blending timekeeping with art and automation. The fascination with mechanical life wasn't limited to the Mediterranean. In ancient China, texts from as early as the 3rd century BCE describe the incredible inventions of an engineer named Ma Jun. He built a mechanical orchestra for the emperor, and even self-operating figures that would dance in the imperial gardens. An even older tale tells of an artisan named Yan Shi, who presented a life-sized mechanical man to King Mu of Zhou. This automaton was said to be so realistic it could sing, dance, and even flirt with the ladies of the court. While maybe a tall tale, it shows a deep cultural interest in creating lifelike machines. Later, during the Tang Dynasty, this legacy continued with intricate mechanical puppets and astonishing water-powered astronomical clocks that featured a host of moving figures, all working in perfect harmony. The next great chapter in our story unfolds during the Islamic Golden Age, a period of incredible scientific flourishing. Here, inventors not only preserved ancient knowledge, but took it to breathtaking new heights. In the 9th century, the 3 Ban Mus brothers wrote the Book of Ingenious Devices, a catalog of over 100 amazing inventions. They designed self-trimming lamps, trick fountains that changed their spray patterns automatically, and even a life-sized automatic flute player powered by water pressure. Their designs were filled with sophisticated components like automatic valves and cams, showcasing an understanding of control systems that was centuries ahead of its time. But the undisputed superstar of this era was the 12th century polymath, Ismail al-Jazari. His work, The Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, is a masterpiece, filled with detailed diagrams and descriptions of his creations. Al-Jazari wasn't just building gadgets. He was building the ancestors of modern robots. He designed automatic hand-washing machines with flushing mechanisms, elaborate clocks, and even a robotic musical band. His most famous invention, the elephant clock, was a spectacle of engineering. A massive multi-level clock powered by water. It featured an array of automatons that moved and made sounds to mark the hours and half-hours. A figure would rotate, a bird would tweet, and a robotic man would strike a cymbal. It was a fusion of art, science, and showmanship. Al-Jazari's robotic band is perhaps his most prophetic invention. It featured 4 automaton musicians floating on a boat. As a hidden water mechanism operated, the figures would play drums, a flute, and a harp. And here, as the truly revolutionary part, the drum machine used a rotating cylinder with pegs that could be moved around. By changing the position of the pegs, you could change the rhythm the drummer played. This was, without a doubt, one of the earliest forms of mechanical programming. It's the direct ancestor of music boxes, player pianos, and even the punch cards that powered the first computers. Al-Jazari wasn't just making music. He was writing the first lines of code. So, what does all this have to do with the robots we know today? Everything. The fundamental principles these ancient engineers explored, automation, mechanical control, fluid dynamics, and programmability, are the very bedrock of modern robotics. When you look at an industrial robot arm on a factory line, performing a precise, repetitive sequence, you're seeing the legacy of Al-Jazari's programmable drum and Hero's automatic theater. The ancient dream of creating lifelike machines, from the myths of Hephaestus to the humanoids of today, shows a deep, continuous line of human ambition. These inventors weren't just building curiosities for kings and temples. They were laying the cultural and technological groundwork for our automated world. They proved that machines could take over complex tasks, entertain us, and serve us. Sadly, much of this incredible knowledge was lost for centuries. The sophisticated designs of Hero and Al-Jazari had to be painstakingly rediscovered during the Renaissance, which in turn helped spark the scientific revolution. It's a powerful reminder of how fragile progress can be. From mythical golden servants to intricate water-powered clocks and programmable robot bands, the story of ancient automatons is a profound exploration of human ingenuity. These early marvels were the first sparks of an idea that would eventually ignite the digital age. They prove that the dream of intelligent machines isn't a modern fantasy, but a quest as old as civilization itself. The spirit of these ancient inventors is alive and well in the engineers and roboticists of today, reminding us that our high-tech future has incredibly deep roots in a surprisingly advanced past. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time. When you think of ancient medicine, what comes to mind? Strange potions, superstitious rituals, and maybe a little bit of guesswork? Well, what if I told you that was only a tiny part of the story? It's easy to look back and dismiss ancient healing, but that would be a huge mistake. From the pyramids of Egypt to the bustling cities of the Roman Empire and across the vast lands of India and China, ancient doctors were developing medical theories, performing complex surgeries, and creating medicines that, in some cases, were thousands of years ahead of their time. These ancient innovators laid the very foundations of modern healthcare, proving that the desire to heal is one of humanity's oldest and most noble quests. Let's start in ancient Egypt, over 3,500 years ago. A document called the Edwin Smith Papyrus has survived, and it's not a book of magic spells. It's a medical textbook, pure and simple. It systematically details 48 cases of physical trauma, likely from battlefields or construction sites. For each case, it gives a title, an examination, a diagnosis, and a treatment plan. This rational, scientific approach is strikingly modern. The papyrus describes setting broken bones, stitching wounds with a needle and thread, and treating head injuries in a way that suggests a basic understanding of the brain. They even knew to dress wounds with honey, which we now know is a natural antiseptic. The Egyptians were also surprisingly skilled dentists, drilling into teeth to drain abscesses, and even creating dental bridges with gold wire to stabilize loose teeth. Their attention to oral health went far beyond just pulling a sore tooth. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the famous Code of Hammurabi laid down laws for doctors, setting fees and even penalties for malpractice. This shows that medicine was a respected, regulated profession nearly 4,000 years ago. While their medicine was mixed with beliefs about gods and demons, their practical skills were real, and their detailed records of symptoms and treatments helped build a shared base of medical knowledge. But it was really ancient Greece that shifted medicine into a new gear, thanks to a man named Hippocrates. Known as the father of medicine, he famously argued that diseases had natural causes, not supernatural ones. He championed the idea of careful observation, clinical examination, and tracking a patient's progress. His legacy includes the Hippocratic Oath, a promise of ethical conduct that doctors still take today, pledging to always act in the best interest of their patient. The Romans inherited this Greek knowledge and took it to an epic scale. A physician named Galen became the most influential medical figure for over 1,000 years. By dissecting animals, he created detailed, though not always perfect, maps of the human body, influencing our understanding of the circulatory and nervous systems. But Rome's true genius was in public health. They engineered incredible aqueducts to bring fresh water into cities and built massive sewer systems, like the Cloaca Maxima in Rome, to carry waste away. They understood that hygiene was key to preventing disease on a massive scale. Their army even had dedicated field hospitals and trained medics, creating a system of military medicine that was unrivaled in the ancient world. Now let's journey to ancient India, home of Ayurveda and a surgeon who was a true visionary. His name was Sushruta, and around 600 BCE, he wrote the Sushruta Samhita, one of the most comprehensive surgical textbooks in history. It describes over 300 surgical procedures and 120 different instruments. Sushruta detailed how to perform cataract surgery, set complex fractures, and get this pioneered plastic surgery. He developed a technique for rhinoplasty, or nose reconstruction, using a flap of skin from the forehead. This technique is remarkably similar to methods still used today. Ayurvedic medicine also took a holistic view, focusing on the balance between diet, lifestyle, and herbal remedies. Physicians like Charaka developed sophisticated methods for diagnosis by checking the pulse, tongue, and urine, creating a deep understanding of internal medicine. The vast library of medicinal plants they documented is still a source of inspiration for drug discovery today. And we can't forget ancient China, where legendary doctors were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. A physician named Hua Tu, who lived around the 2nd century AD, is famous for being the first recorded surgeon in China to use anesthesia. He developed an herbal formula called mafizin that allowed him to perform complex abdominal surgeries, a feat that wouldn't be matched in the West for over 1,500 years. Of course, Chinese medicine also gave us acupuncture, the practice of inserting fine needles into specific points on the body to relieve pain and treat illness. While the concept of balancing qi, or life energy, might sound foreign, modern science is increasingly recognizing its effectiveness, especially for pain management. Their massive catalog of herbal remedies represents thousands of years of observation and refinement. So, while ancient medicine certainly had its limits, they didn't know about germs, and some of their theories were just plain wrong. It was far from primitive. The systematic approaches of the Egyptians, the ethical foundations of the Greeks, the public health marvels of the Romans, and the incredible surgical skills of Indian and Chinese physicians all laid the groundwork for the medicine we rely on today. Their work is a powerful reminder that science and healing are not modern inventions. They are the result of a long, unbroken chain of curiosity, observation, and a deep-seated desire to help others. The next time you visit a doctor, take a moment to appreciate the thousands of years of history that led to the care you receive. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the amazing history of science and innovation. See you next time, long before your smartphone buzzed with a notification, before the crackle of a radio broadcast, and even before the click-clack of the telegraph. Humanity faced a monumental challenge. How do you talk to someone who's hundreds or even thousands of miles away? The answers our ancestors came up with weren't just clever. They were revolutionary. They built the original information superhighways, the ancient internet, using fire, runners, and even birds. These weren't just primitive signals. They were sophisticated networks that laid the very foundation for the connected world we live in today. Let's journey back in time and uncover the forgotten genius of ancient communication. One of the most powerful and visually stunning methods was the beacon chain. Imagine a vast empire, like ancient Persia, needing to send an urgent message across its territory. Instead of a lone messenger on a horse, they used a network of fire signals. A fire is lit on one hilltop, a blazing alert against the night sky. Miles away, an observer on the next peak sees it and immediately lights their own beacon. This chain reaction would continue, a cascade of light and information, relaying a message across hundreds of miles in just a few hours. It was faster than any human could travel, a true marvel of ancient engineering. But the Greeks took it a step further. They weren't content with just simple alerts like danger. The historian Polybius described an incredible system that was essentially an ancient optical telegraph. Picture two low walls, each with 5 torches. By raising a specific number of torches on the left wall and another number on the right, you could signal a specific letter of the alphabet based on a grid. This was a game changer. For the first time, you could spell out complex, detailed messages across a distance, letter by letter. It was slow, sure, but it was the ancestor of digital communication, a binary system of light that could transmit any thought you could write down. Of course, not all messages could be sent with fire and smoke. For the day-to-day business of running an empire, you needed something more reliable and detailed. Enter the Roman Empire and its legendary postal service, the asterisk cursus publicus asterisk. This wasn't just a few guys on horses. It was a highly organized, state-funded network. Along the empire's vast web of roads, relay stations called asterisk mutations asterisk were set up at regular intervals. A courier would gallop to a station, leap onto a fresh horse, and continue his journey at top speed. This system could move official decrees, intelligence reports, and administrative letters up to 50 miles a day, an astonishing speed for the time. It was the organizational masterpiece that kept a sprawling empire from Britain to Mesopotamia connected and under control. The principles of logistics and network management they perfected are still the bedrock of our modern postal and delivery services. When speed and secrecy were paramount, ancient civilizations looked to the skies. Homing pigeons, with their incredible natural ability to find their way home, became the ultimate biological data packets. The Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans all used these birds to carry small, rolled-up messages. During a siege in 43 BCE, a Roman general trapped inside a city used pigeons to send messages for help, proving their critical role in military strategy. Think about it. A living, self-navigating, and incredibly fast messenger that could fly over enemy lines. It was a form of communication that offered a level of mobility and discretion that no fixed signal could ever match. But perhaps the most awe-inspiring human network was created by the Inca Empire in the rugged Andes Mountains. Lacking a traditional written language, the Incas relied on a system of relay runners called the asterisk chasqui asterisk. These were elite athletes, trained from a young age to run at high altitudes. They were stationed in huts every few miles along the vast Inca road system. A message, which could be spoken, a small artifact, or a complex knotted cord called an asterisk quipu asterisk, used for keeping records, would be passed from one runner to the next. This human relay was so efficient, it could cover over 150 miles in a single day, ensuring that news and orders from the capital city of Cusco reached the furthest corners of the empire with incredible speed. The chasqui were the living, breathing broadband network of the Inca world, a testament to what can be achieved through human endurance and brilliant organization. The desire for secure communication is also as old as communication itself. Julius Caesar, for instance, knew that his military messages could be intercepted. So, he invented a simple encryption method, now famously known as the Caesar cipher. He would shift each letter of his message, by a set number of places in the alphabet. To an enemy, the intercepted message would look like gibberish. But to his own generals, who knew the key and number of letters to shift back, the message was perfectly clear. This was one of the earliest forms of cryptography, the ancient precursor to the encrypted data that keeps our online information safe today. It shows a profound early understanding that protecting information is just as important as transmitting it. When you look at all these systems together, the beacon chains, the courier networks, the pigeon post, a powerful idea emerges, the concept of a network. The ancient world understood that while a single person or signal is limited, a system of interconnected nodes working together can overcome almost any distance. This decentralized approach, where each part contributes to the whole, is the fundamental principle behind the modern internet. The packets of data that travel across the globe to bring you this video are the digital descendants of the messages passed between Roman couriers or Inca chasqui. The limitations were obvious. Bad weather could obscure fire signals, and the amount of information you could send was tiny. But the ingenuity was breathtaking. These ancient innovators weren't just solving a practical problem. They were driven by a fundamental human need to connect, to share, and to build communities across vast spaces. They were laying the conceptual groundwork for everything that would follow, from the semaphore lines of the 18th century to the telegraph, the telephone, and ultimately, our global digital age. So the next time you send a text or join a video call, take a moment to remember these ancient architects of information. The fire on the hill, the runner on the mountain path, and the pigeon in the sky. They were the pioneers who first dreamed of a connected world and, with incredible determination and genius, started to build it. They proved that the desire to shrink the world and bring people closer together is a timeless human endeavor. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the incredible history of technology and ideas. We'll see you in the next one. Think smart city, and you probably picture flying cars and holographic ads, right? But what if I told you the blueprints for our most advanced, high-tech cities were actually drawn up thousands of years ago? It turns out our ancestors were the original smart city planners. You see, the challenges of urban living, packed streets, sanitation, getting resources to everyone, aren't new. Ancient civilizations were already tackling these problems, and their solutions were nothing short of genius. They weren't just building cities. They were engineering complex, sustainable ecosystems for millions of people. Let's start in the Indus Valley, over 4,000 years ago. In cities like Mohenjo-Daro, they weren't just throwing up buildings. They designed their cities on a perfect grid, with streets running north-south and east-west. Sound familiar? It's the same layout used in countless modern cities, designed for efficient traffic and organized growth. But here's the mind-blowing part. Almost every single house in Mohenjo-Daro had its own private bathroom and toilet. These were connected to a sophisticated, covered drainage system that ran underneath the streets, carrying waste away from the city. This level of sanitation was unheard of and wouldn't be seen again in many parts of the world until the 19th century. They had solved public health crises before they even started. Now, let's jump to the Roman Empire, the undisputed masters of infrastructure. Their cities were masterpieces of standardization. Following a grid plan centered on two main roads, they had distinct zones for public life, housing, and commerce. But the real magic was in how they powered these cities. The Romans engineered incredible aqueducts, massive stone bridges that carried millions of gallons of fresh water into their cities every single day. This water supplied public fountains, grand bathhouses, and even private homes through an intricate network of pipes. And what goes in must come out. Rome's legendary sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima, efficiently whisked waste away, keeping the city clean and healthy. It was a complete, holistic system designed for a massive population. But planning isn't just about pipes and roads. It's about people. The ancient Greeks understood this perfectly. Think of the Greek polis, or city-state. An architect named Hippodamus is often called the father of urban planning because he didn't just design street layouts. He zoned cities. He designated specific areas for public, private, and religious use. This concept of zoning is the bedrock of every single modern city plan today. The Greeks championed the agora, a central public space that was part marketplace, part government forum, and part social hub. They knew that a great city needs a great public realm where community and civic life can flourish. It's the same reason we value our public parks, squares, and community centers today. And we can't forget ancient China. The Tang Dynasty capital of Chang'an was an absolute marvel of urban design. It was a colossal walled city, laid out on a meticulous grid with enormous boulevards. It was divided into 108 separate wards, each like a small, self-contained neighborhood. The city was designed for grandeur, defense, and administrative control, a testament to the power of centralized planning. What connects all these ancient metropolises is their ingenious use of the best technology available to them. Their smart tech wasn't digital. It was physical. Their understanding of engineering, hydrology, and logistics was so advanced, it allowed them to manage resources, support huge populations, and create livable, functional environments. Take water management. In arid regions like Mesopotamia and Egypt, complex canal systems were engineered to control river floods and irrigate crops, making urban life possible in the desert, or defense. Massive city walls, like those of ancient Mycenae, were not just barriers. They were integrated strategic systems, with gate placements and street layouts designed to confuse and trap invaders. These ancient planners were also running complex civic operations. They had public granaries to ensure food security, collected taxes to fund public works, and used art and architecture to build a sense of shared identity and pride. It was a complete system, managing everything from public health to the economy. So when we talk about a smart city today, using data and technology to improve quality of life, we're really just following in their footsteps. A grid layout is a form of data management, simplifying navigation and land use. Aqueducts and sewer systems are technologies for resource management. They were building for resilience, creating cities that could withstand shocks and endure for centuries. Unfortunately, this knowledge was fragile. When the Roman Empire fell, their incredible infrastructure decayed. The aqueducts crumbled, the sewers clogged, and public health plummeted. It took centuries to rediscover their engineering secrets, a stark reminder that even the smartest cities require constant maintenance and investment. The rediscovery of these ancient cities has inspired planners for generations. From Renaissance city designs to the grand public spaces of the City Beautiful movement, we've been borrowing their ideas all along. Their focus on walkability, public spaces, and durable, local materials are all concepts we're championing today as we strive to build more sustainable, human-centered cities. So the next time you walk down a gridded city street or turn on your tap for clean water, remember the ancient visionaries who first imagined and then built the foundations of our urban world. They prove that a truly smart city isn't just about the latest technology. It's about a timeless commitment to creating a better, healthier, and more organized life for everyone. The future of our cities was, in many ways, planned thousands of years ago. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time fascinating, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the wonders of the past. See you next time. When you picture ancient craftsmanship, what comes to mind? Is it a lone artisan chipping away at stone with simple tools? While that's part of the story, it misses something incredible, something that rivals our own modern world. Ancient civilizations possessed a stunning mastery of precision engineering, something so advanced It almost feels like science fiction. They didn't just build things. They engineered them with an accuracy that defies belief. This isn't just about beautiful art. It's about the birth of mass production, of interchangeable parts, and the very foundations of the world we live in today. The roots of our industrial age go back way further than you think. Let's start with one of the wonders of the world, the Great Pyramid of Giza. We all know it's big, but it's the precision that's truly mind-blowing. Built over 4,500 years ago, its base is almost a perfect square. The sides are over 750 feet long, yet the difference between the longest and shortest is less than 8 inches. It's aligned to true north with an accuracy that modern builders would need GPS to achieve. And the casing stones that once covered it, they were cut so perfectly that the gaps between them were less than a millimeter. You couldn't even slide a razor blade between them. How did they achieve this with copper saws and stone pounders? It's a testament to an incredible mastery of measurement and a relentless pursuit of perfection. Now, let's jump forward to ancient Greece and a discovery that rewrote history, the Antikythera mechanism. Pulled from a shipwreck, this ancient device is often called the world's first analog computer. It's a complex clockwork of over 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth as tiny as 1 millimeter. Think about that. Creating gears that small, that uniform, and getting them to mesh perfectly requires a level of metalworking and calibration that was thought to be impossible for the time. It has a level of precision that would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years. This wasn't a one-off project. The consistency of the parts suggests they had developed methods for creating standardized components, a crucial step towards building any complex machine. This obsession with accuracy wasn't just for strange, wonderful devices. It was practical. Roman engineers built 1,000-mile road networks and aqueducts that still stand today. How? With sophisticated surveying tools. They used instruments like the dioptra and the chroma to measure angles and lay out perfect right angles, allowing them to build cities on a grid and ensure water flowed consistently for miles. These tools weren't crude. They were finely crafted instruments that needed careful calibration. The Romans knew that for their empire to function, from its roads to its buildings, precision was not a luxury. It was a necessity. And what about the concept of mass production? You might think that started with Henry Ford, but the Romans were already masters of it. Imagine the scale of the Roman army, hundreds of thousands of soldiers needing equipment. Their swords, shields, and helmets were produced in enormous quantities with standardized designs. While not made on a modern assembly line, this system used templates and specialized workshops to ensure that parts were consistent. A broken sword hilt could be replaced, a damaged shield repaired with standard components. This was a logistical game-changer, allowing them to equip and re-equip their legions with incredible efficiency. It was a military-industrial complex powered by standardization. This industrial mindset extended to civilian life, too. Think about Roman pottery, especially the famous red gloss terra sigillata. It was the ancient world's equivalent of IKEA dinnerware. Found all across the empire, these bowls and plates were made using molds to create standardized shapes and decorations. This allowed for high-volume, consistent production, making quality goods affordable for more people. It's an early form of industrial design and manufacturing, bringing the benefits of precision and efficiency to the everyday consumer, centuries before the Industrial Revolution. Halfway across the world, ancient China was making its own leaps in precision engineering. During the Shang and Zhou dynasties, they created breathtakingly intricate bronze vessels. Their secret was a sophisticated piece mold casting technique. They would create a detailed clay model, cover it with an outer mold, and then cut that mold into sections to be reassembled. The precision needed to make these multi-part molds fit together perfectly was astonishing, resulting in seamless, complex designs. This was advanced tooling at its finest, a method for mass-producing high-quality, intricate items. But perhaps the most stunning example from China is the crossbow. As early as the 4th century BCE, they developed crossbows with sophisticated bronze trigger mechanisms. Here's the revolutionary part. These triggers were often mass-produced and interchangeable. If a soldier's trigger mechanism broke in the middle of a battle, they could simply swap it out with a new one. This concept of interchangeable parts is the holy grail of modern manufacturing. It wouldn't become common in the West until the 18th century. Yet ancient Chinese armorers had mastered it 2,000 years earlier, completely changing the face of warfare and logistics. The drive for precision even touched how people understood their world. Ancient astronomical instruments, like the astrolabe, developed in the Hellenistic world, required incredibly precise engraving of scales and angles to be useful for navigation and telling time. Even something as basic as standardized weights and measures, essential for trade and taxes, required a system of calibration and control. An accurate pound or a consistent foot wasn't just a convenience. It was the bedrock of a fair and functioning economy. All of this shows an implicit understanding of what we now call tolerances, the acceptable margin of error. The fact that pyramid stones fit, that gears mached, that triggers were interchangeable, proves they knew exactly how precise a part needed to be to do its job. Tragically, much of this knowledge was lost. The skills to cut gears with such precision vanished from Europe after the fall of Rome, only to be slowly reinvented from medieval clocks a millennium later. It's a powerful reminder that progress isn't always a straight line. The knowledge of ancient engineers was fragile, passed down from master to apprentice, and easily lost in times of upheaval. So why does this ancient history matter to us now? Because these early innovators laid the groundwork for our entire technological world. The idea that you can make things with repeatable accuracy, that you can assemble complex machines from standardized parts, and that you can control quality on a mass scale, these concepts weren't born in the Industrial Revolution. They were born in the minds of ancient engineers, stonemasons, and metallurgists. Their legacy is not just in the silent stones of pyramids or the bronze gears on the ocean floor. It's in every device you use, every vehicle you ride in, every product built on an assembly line. They prove that the human drive for precision, efficiency, and perfection is as old as civilization itself. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into our forgotten technological past as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments which ancient technology blows your mind the most. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what powered the ancient world? Long before coal-fired plants and solar panels, our ancestors were master engineers, harnessing the raw power of nature to build empires and feed civilizations. This isn't just about manpower or animal strength. We're talking about sophisticated systems that capture the energy of wind, water, and even the sun. These ancient inventions were not just primitive novelties. They were foundational technologies that laid the groundwork for our modern world. From the Roman Empire to ancient Persia, these brilliant minds understood something fundamental, that the key to progress was to work asterisk with asterisk nature, not against it. Today, we're going to journey back in time to uncover these forgotten marvels of engineering and discover how ancient ingenuity paved the way for the renewable energy revolution we're re-experiencing today. This is the story of the first power grids. One of the most transformative inventions of the ancient world was the water wheel. Imagine a world where grinding grain for bread was a grueling, day-long task done by hand or with animals. The water wheel changed everything. Its origins stretch back to the Hellenistic period, with Greek engineers like Philo of Byzantium describing early versions in the 3rd century BCE. By the 1st century BCE, the Roman architect Vitruvius was detailing two main designs: the undershot wheel, pushed by the current from below, and the more efficient overshot wheel, where water poured over the top, using gravity to create powerful rotation. This simple, yet revolutionary, device provided a continuous, tireless source of power. It was like flipping a switch that automated the ancient world. Mills, sawmills, and mechanical workshops suddenly sprang to life, powered not by muscle, but by the steady flow of a river. This mechanization freed up countless hours of human labor, allowing societies to focus on other pursuits, and dramatically increased production on a scale never seen before. The economic impact was staggering. The water wheel didn't just make life easier, it powered economies. The task of grinding grain, the very foundation of daily survival, became massively efficient. The Romans, masters of large-scale engineering, took this technology to an industrial level. They built vast mill complexes, often integrating them with their famous aqueducts to ensure a constant water supply. These ancient factories could process enormous quantities of flour, feeding bustling cities and sustaining the legions that guarded the empire. Some of these Roman mills had a power output that could rival early steam engines, a truly mind-boggling achievement for an era relying solely on renewable resources. The most spectacular example of this is the Barbegal Aqueduct and Mill Complex in southern France. Dating to the 4th century AD, this site was the Silicon Valley of its time. Picture a steep hillside with a cascade of 16 massive overshot water wheels, all arranged in a series, one powering the next. This engineering marvel could grind an estimated 4.5 tons of grain every single day. That's enough flour to bake bread for 80,000 people. Barbegal wasn't just a mill. It was an ancient industrial complex, a testament to the Roman sophisticated understanding of hydraulics, power transmission, and large-scale project management, all running on clean, green water power. It is a powerful reminder that industrial-scale production didn't begin with the smokestacks of the 18th century. But what about places where rivers were scarce? In the vast arid landscapes of ancient Persia, now modern-day Iran and Afghanistan, engineers faced a different challenge. Their solution was just as brilliant. They looked to the sky and harnessed the wind. The earliest known practical windmill appeared here around the 7th century AD. But it probably doesn't look like the Dutch windmills you're picturing. This was a vertical axis windmill. Imagine a central upright shaft with sails made of reed mats or cloth, all enclosed in a structure with special vents. These vents would guide the wind to push on one side of the sails, causing the entire shaft to spin. It was a simple, robust design, perfectly suited for the strong, steady winds of the region. This invention was a game-changer, allowing communities to grind their grain and, crucially, pump precious water for irrigation in places where it was otherwise impossible. It was a direct line of ancestry to the giant wind turbines that dot our landscapes today. The design of the Persian windmill was a masterclass in adapting to the local environment. Unlike the later horizontal axis windmills of Europe, which need to be turned to face the wind, the vertical axis design worked brilliantly with the often unidirectional winds of the Persian plateau. The walled enclosure was key. It acted like a funnel, concentrating the wind's force onto the sails and creating the rotational power needed for work. While perhaps not as efficient as later designs, their impact was transformative. They automated labor in some of the world's most challenging environments, supporting agriculture and sustaining communities. These early windmills are a perfect example of human ingenuity, turning a potential hardship, the relentless wind, into a vital resource. It is a lesson in sustainable design that is just as relevant today as it was over 1,000 years ago. Beyond the mechanical power of wind and water, ancient thinkers also dabbled in the fascinating realm of solar and thermal energy. While they weren't generating electricity, they absolutely understood how to concentrate the sun's power. The most famous story, of course, is that of Archimedes. Legend has it that during the Roman siege of his city Syracuse in 212 BCE, he used an array of polished bronze shields to act as burning mirrors. By reflecting and focusing the sun's rays onto the approaching Roman warships, he supposedly set their sails on fire. Now, historians debate whether this specific event actually happened, but the principle behind it was absolutely sound and well understood. This was an early and rather dramatic demonstration of concentrated solar power. We have more concrete evidence from writers like the Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger. He described how glass globes filled with water could be used to magnify sunlight, acting like a lens to focus a beam of light so intensely that it could start a fire. This wasn't for warfare, but for practical daily use. These experiments show that the ancients were not just observing the world. They were actively trying to manipulate natural forces. They understood the fundamental properties of heat and light and were beginning to explore ways to harness them. From Archimedes' alleged death ray to a simple fire-starting lens, these early explorations into solar energy were the first small steps on a long road that leads directly to the photovoltaic cells and solar thermal plants we rely on today. The spark of an idea, quite literally, began thousands of years ago. From the roaring water wheels of Rome to the elegant windmills of Persia and the brilliant solar experiments of Greek and Roman thinkers, the ancient world was alive with energy innovation. These engineers and inventors were the unsung pioneers of renewable power. They saw the forces of nature not as obstacles, but as allies. Their work wasn't just about grinding grain or pumping water. It was about building a more efficient, more productive, and more sustainable world with the tools they had. Their legacy proves that the drive for clean, smart energy solutions isn't a modern trend. It's a deeply ingrained part of the human story. The next time you see a wind farm or a hydroelectric dam, remember the ancient minds who first dared to dream of harnessing the planet. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed exploring these incredible ancient technologies, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about the hidden history of science and engineering. Let me know in the comments which ancient invention you find most fascinating. See you in the next video. Have you ever wondered if our ancestors were secretly energy geniuses? We often think of renewable energy as a modern invention, a 21st century solution to a 21st century problem. But what if I told you that the blueprints for our green future were actually drawn up thousands of years ago? Today, we're going to uncover the surprisingly sophisticated and visionary world of ancient energy systems, technologies that didn't just power ancient civilizations, but also uncannily predicted our own. Let's start in ancient Rome. We know them for their aqueducts and legions, but they were also masters of solar power. Roman architects were pioneers of passive solar design. They built many of their bathhouses and private villas with huge south-facing windows. This ingenious design, which they called heliocaminus, or sun furnace, was designed to capture the maximum amount of sunlight during the cold winter months. The sun's rays would flood the rooms, warming the stone floors and walls, which would then radiate heat throughout the day and into the evening. This simple, elegant solution drastically reduced the need for burning wood or charcoal for heating. They understood that sunlight was a free, inexhaustible resource that could be harnessed for comfort and conservation. It's the very same principle behind modern green buildings and sustainable architecture. They were literally living in solar-powered homes 2,000 years ago. But the Romans didn't stop with the sun. Their command of water power was nothing short of legendary. We all know about the aqueducts that brought fresh water to their cities, but they also used water for heavy industry in ways that are truly mind-boggling. In mining, for instance, they developed a technique called hashing. They would build vast reservoirs and complex networks of channels on hillsides above gold deposits. When the reservoirs were full, they would unleash a torrent of water, a man-made flash flood that would strip away tons of earth and rock, exposing the gold-bearing veins beneath. It was a destructive, but incredibly effective method of large-scale extraction. They were using water as a hydraulic hammer, demonstrating an industrial-scale command of hydroengineering that's staggering for its time. And then there were their mills. The Barbeagle Mill complex in southern France is a perfect example. This wasn't just one water wheel by a river. It was an industrial factory. Water from an aqueduct cascaded down a steep hill, powering a series of 16 water wheels, arranged in 2 parallel sets of 8. Each wheel drove a pair of millstones. Archaeologists estimate this complex could grind enough flour to feed the entire nearby city of Arles, about 10,000 people. It was a marvel of mechanical engineering, a true power plant of the ancient world, showing that they could create complex, powerful industrial systems using nothing but gravity and flowing water. Now let's travel east to ancient Persia, around the 7th century AD. Here, in the windswept plains, another energy revolution was taking place. The Persians developed the world's first practical windmills. But these weren't the quaint Dutch windmills you might be picturing. These were vertical axis windmills, with sails that rotated around a vertical pole, like a revolving door. This design was brilliant for capturing the region's strong, consistent winds. They were used for the essentials of life, grinding grain into flour and pumping water for irrigation, turning arid land into fertile fields. This technology was a conceptual leap, proving that the invisible power of the wind could be converted into reliable mechanical work. It was a foundational step, the ancient ancestor of the massive wind turbines that dot our landscapes today. Perhaps the most futuristic of all ancient inventions came from 1st century Alexandria, from the brilliant mind of Hero or Hieron. He described a device called the eolipile. It was a hollow sphere mounted on an axle, with 2 bent nozzles pointing in opposite directions. When water inside a connected kettle was boiled, steam would travel into the sphere and jet out of the nozzles. This action, based on Newton's 3rd law of motion centuries before Newton, caused the sphere to spin rapidly. While the eolipile was likely just a scientific curiosity, a temple wonder to demonstrate principles, its importance cannot be overstated. It was the world's first ever steam engine. It proved, in a tangible way, that thermal energy from heat could be converted into kinetic energy motion. It was the conceptual seed that, over 1,000 years later, would blossom into the steam engines of the Industrial Revolution. So what does all this ancient ingenuity mean? It tells us that the progression of technology isn't a straight line. After the fall of Rome, much of this sophisticated knowledge was lost or forgotten in Europe. The water mills and windmills that became common in the Middle Ages were often reinventions, built without direct knowledge of their ancient predecessors. It is a powerful reminder that progress depends on preserving and building upon the knowledge of the past. It also makes us look at these ancient societies through a surprisingly green lens. By harnessing renewable resources like water, wind, and sun, they reduced their reliance on burning wood, which could lead to deforestation. While they weren't thinking in terms of climate change, their energy choices created a more sustainable base for their communities than the fossil fuel-dependent world that would follow. They found ways to live in harmony with the energy flows of the natural world. From the Roman heliocaminus to the Persian windmill, from the Barbeagle water-powered factory to Hero's steam engine, these ancient systems laid the groundwork for our entire modern energy landscape. The core principles converting water flow, wind, solar radiation, and steam into useful work are the same ones we use today. A modern hydroelectric dam is a direct, super-efficient descendant of the Roman water wheel. A wind farm is the high-tech evolution of the Persian design. And solar thermal plants, which use mirrors to concentrate sunlight and create steam, echo both the solar wisdom of the Romans and the steam principles of Hero's eolipile. These ancient engineers were not just innovators, they were visionaries. They showed that harnessing natural, renewable forces was not only possible, but could be done on an industrial scale. They proved that energy independence and local resilience are not new ideas, but ancient aspirations. They looked at the world around them, the flowing river, the blowing wind, the shining sun, and saw not just nature, but power. They are the unsung heroes of our energy history, and their work proves that the quest for clean, sustainable power is a story as old as civilization itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient technology, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time. This feeling isn't new. In fact, it's one of the oldest scientific quests in human history. Long before we had powerful telescopes and spacecraft, ancient civilizations were already deeply engaged in the study of the heavens. They were the original pioneers of space exploration, and their achievements were nothing short of astonishing. From monumental stone calendars to complex mathematical models, our ancestors laid the very foundation for modern astronomy. They weren't just stargazers. They were brilliant scientists, mathematicians, and engineers who saw the universe as a grand, intricate puzzle. Today, we read going on a journey back in time to uncover the incredible astronomical genius of the ancient world. So sit back and let's explore the cosmic legacy of our ancestors. Our first stop takes us to the misty plains of England, to a monument that has captivated imaginations for centuries, Stonehenge. Built between 3000 and 1500 BCE, this circle of massive stones is far more than just a mysterious ruin. Many experts believe it was a sophisticated astronomical observatory. The entire structure is a masterpiece of celestial alignment. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the rising sun appears to hover directly over the heel stone when viewed from the center of the circle. Other stones mark the sunrise and sunset on the winter solstice, as well as the equinoxes. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a deliberate, monumental calendar built to track the seasons. For an agricultural society, knowing exactly when to plant and when to harvest was a matter of survival. The builders of Stonehenge possessed an incredible understanding of the sun's path, turning their observations into a permanent architectural guide to the rhythm of the year. Now, let's travel south to the sun-drenched lands of ancient Egypt. Here, astronomy was woven into the very fabric of life, religion, and power. The entire Egyptian civilization depended on the annual flooding of the Nile River, which brought fertile silt to their farmlands. How did they predict this crucial event? By watching the stars. They noticed that the flood arrived shortly after the star Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, reappeared on the eastern horizon just before sunrise. This event, known as the heliacal rising of Sirius, became the cornerstone of their calendar. But their cosmic connection went even deeper. The Great Pyramids of Giza, one of the wonders of the ancient world, are aligned with breathtaking precision. The three main pyramids mirror the three stars of Orion's belt, and various shafts within the pyramids point toward specific stars, believed to guide the soul of the pharaoh into the afterlife. Their temples, like the one containing the famous Dendera zodiac, were celestial maps in stone, depicting constellations and planets. For the Egyptians, the heavens were not a distant realm. They were an integral part of their world, guiding them in both life and death. Next, we journey to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, where the Babylonians elevated astronomy to a whole new level. Mathematical prediction. Starting around the 18th century BCE, they began meticulously recording celestial events on clay tablets. Over centuries, they amassed a vast library of observational data. But they didn't just record what they saw. They looked for patterns. Using sophisticated arithmetic and early algebraic methods, Babylonian astronomers became masters of forecasting. They could predict lunar and solar eclipses, track the complex movements of the planets, and calculate the length of the year with remarkable accuracy. They developed detailed star catalogs and tables, known as ephemerides, that could tell them where a celestial body would be at a specific time. It was the Babylonians who divided the circle into 360 degrees and gave us the base 60 system we still use for measuring time and angles, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. Their work represents a monumental shift from simple observation to a systematic, predictive science of the cosmos. The intellectual torch of astronomy was then passed to the ancient Greeks, who brought their own unique genius to the field, geometry and theoretical models. Building on the knowledge of the Egyptians and Babylonians, Greek thinkers sought to explain the asterisk, why asterisk behind the celestial movements. Not just the asterisk, what asterisk, and asterisk when asterisk. Figures like Pythagoras proposed that the universe was governed by mathematical harmony, while many, like the great philosopher Aristotle, believed the Earth was the center of the cosmos. Geocentric model. There were radical thinkers who dared to suggest otherwise. Aristarchus of Samos, in the 3rd century BCE, proposed a heliocentric model, placing the Sun, not the Earth, at the center of the known universe. It was an idea thousands of years ahead of its time. During this same period, another brilliant mind, Eratosthenes, calculated the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy using nothing more than shadows, and some basic geometry. Then came Hipparchus, often called the greatest astronomer of antiquity. In the 2nd century BCE, he created one of the most comprehensive star catalogues of his time, discovered the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, and even developed trigonometry to make his astronomical calculations more precise. The Greeks weren't just observing the sky. They were applying rigorous logic and mathematics to understand its very structure. Our final stop is with a figure who would dominate astronomical thought for over 1,400 years, Claudius Ptolemy. Working in the Roman city of Alexandria in the 2nd century AD, Ptolemy synthesized centuries of Greek and Babylonian astronomical knowledge into one monumental work, the Almagest asterisk. Ptolemy championed the geocentric model, placing a stationary Earth at the center of the universe. Now, we know this is incorrect, but his system was incredibly sophisticated. To explain the strange retrograde motion of planets, where they appear to move backward in the sky, he devised an ingenious system of circles upon circles, known as epicycles and deferents. It was a mathematical masterpiece. His model was so good at predicting planetary positions that it became the undisputed astronomical authority throughout the Roman Empire, the Islamic world, and medieval Europe, all the way until Copernicus. The Almagest asterisk was more than just a theory. It was a complete toolkit for astronomers, a testament to the power of using mathematics to model the cosmos, setting a standard for scientific rigor that would echo for centuries. From the stone circles of Stonehenge to the mathematical brilliance of Ptolemy, the story of ancient astronomy is a powerful reminder of our enduring curiosity. These ancient observers were driven by the same questions that drive us today. What is our place in the universe? And how does it all work? They showed us that with careful observation, intellectual courage, and a touch of genius, we can begin to unravel the secrets of the cosmos. Their legacy is not just in the past. It's written in the stars we continue to explore. Thank you so much for joining me on this cosmic journey through time. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more adventures into the history of science and discovery. Let me know in the comments which ancient civilization fascinates you the most. Until next time, keep looking up. Did you know that our journey to the stars began thousands of years ago, not with rockets, but with rocks? Long before telescopes, ancient cultures were already sophisticated astronomers, building incredible observatories to map the cosmos. This wasn't just idle stargazing. This was the birth of space science. Let's travel back in time. In Mesoamerica, the Maya built stunning cities aligned with the cosmos. Structures like El Caracol at Chichen Itza were not just temples, but precision observatories. With carefully placed windows, they tracked the sun, the moon, and even the planet Venus with astonishing accuracy. They developed calendars so precise they could predict eclipses, weaving the cycles of the heavens into the very fabric of their society. This wasn't knowledge borrowed from anyone. It was a completely independent path to advanced astronomy. Half a world away, ancient China was creating an unbroken, multi-millennia-long record of the night sky. Chinese astronomers were meticulous record keepers. They documented guest stars, supernovae like the one in 1054 AD that created the Crab Nebula we see today. They cataloged comets and solar eclipses with unparalleled dedication. To do this, they invented sophisticated instruments. Think of the armillary sphere, an intricate model of the celestial globe that could measure star positions with remarkable precision. The brilliant Zhang Heng even created a water-powered version that automatically tracked the heavens. This commitment to long-term data collection is the very foundation of modern science. Then came the Islamic Golden Age, a period that literally saved and supercharged astronomy. From the 8th to the 13th centuries, scholars in cities like Baghdad and Damascus didn't just preserve ancient Greek texts like Ptolemy as Almagest **. They scrutinized, corrected, and vastly improved upon them. They established state-of-the-art observatories equipped with giant quadrants and sextants, tools that allowed for measurements far more precise than ever before. Astronomers like al-Battani refined the length of the solar year, while in the 15th century, Allah Beg built a monumental observatory in Samarkand and produced one of the most accurate star catalogs of the pre-telescopic era. They developed new mathematics, like spherical trigonometry, and their instrumental innovations paved the way for the European Renaissance. These ancient observatories, whether they were towering pyramids, stone circles, or dedicated towers, were humanity's first laboratories for studying the universe. They were centers of learning where generations of astronomers did something profoundly scientific. They observed, they recorded, and they analyzed. The sheer dedication to watching the sky, sometimes over centuries, allowed them to see subtle patterns that are invisible in a single lifetime. This systematic empirical approach is what science is all about. And the instruments themselves were marvels of engineering. The astrolabe, perfected in the Islamic world, was a beautiful handheld analog computer. It could tell time, determine latitude, and solve complex astronomical problems. Its intricate design shows a beautiful marriage of art, craftsmanship, and scientific theory. These weren't just tools. They were the predecessors to our modern scientific instruments, embodying the quest for precision and quantification. But perhaps the biggest breakthrough was conceptual. The idea that the universe wasn't just chaotic, but was an ordered, predictable system governed by laws that we could understand, that was revolutionary. It shifted focus from divine whim to natural cause and effect. The ability to predict an eclipse wasn't magic. It was the ultimate proof that observation and rational thought held immense power. This fundamental quest to find order in the cosmos is the very essence of physics today. This knowledge also had huge practical implications. Think about navigation. Early sailors looked to the stars to find their way across vast, open oceans. The legendary Polynesian navigators, for instance, used an intimate knowledge of star paths and ocean swells to colonize the Pacific. Later, the astrolabe made it possible to determine latitude accurately, fueling the age of exploration and connecting the globe. Every time you use GPS today, you're using a direct technological descendant of these ancient celestial navigation techniques. It's also a story of lost and rediscovered knowledge. While Islamic scholars were making huge leaps, much of this wisdom was lost to Europe during the early Middle Ages. It was the reintroduction of these advanced texts, translated from Arabic into Latin, that reignited astronomy in Europe and led directly to the scientific revolution to Copernicus, Kepler, and Galileo. It's a powerful reminder of how interconnected human progress is and how vital it is to share knowledge across cultures and time. The influence of ancient astronomy is all around us. The names of our constellations and planets come from Greek, and Roman myths. The way we measure time in angles, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, is a legacy from ancient Babylon. The enduring human drive to build bigger and better observatories, from Stonehenge to the James Webb Space Telescope, is a continuation of the same ancient quest. The fundamental questions we ask today: where did the universe come from? What is our place in it? Are the very same questions that drove our ancestors to look up at the night sky with wonder and determination. So the next time you see a picture from a modern space probe or look up at the moon, remember that this journey didn't start in the 20th century. It began thousands of years ago, with brilliant minds and patient observers who laid the groundwork for everything we know about space today. They were the true pioneers of cosmic exploration, predicting a future they could only dream of. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of science. See you in the next video. From the very first moment one of our ancestors picked up a gleaming nugget of gold, humanity has been on a relentless quest to master the very stuff our world is made of. We call it materials science now, a field of superalloys, advanced composites, and nanotechnology. But its roots aren't in modern labs. They're found in the flickering fires and smoky forges of antiquity. The story of how we learned to bend, blend, and transform metal is the story of civilization itself. A 10,000-year journey of discovery that proves the desire to create better, stronger, faster materials is encoded in our DNA. Our journey begins not with a bang, but with a hammer. In prehistory, early humans found native metals like copper and gold. These were gifts from the earth, found in their pure form. They could be hammered, shaped, and polished into jewelry and simple tools without fire. But the real revolution, the spark that would ignite an entirely new era of technology, came from a profound realization that you could turn rock into metal. This wasn't magic. It was the birth of extractive metallurgy. Around 7,000 years ago, in places like Anatolia and Mesopotamia, our ancestors learned that if you heated certain bluish-green rocks to scorching temperatures in a controlled fire, a new gleaming substance would emerge pure copper. This process, smelting, was a monumental leap. It required a deep, intuitive understanding of chemistry, controlling the flow of air to create a reducing atmosphere that would starve the ore of oxygen and release the metal within. It wasn't just about making a big fire. They needed containers that could withstand these hellish temperatures, leading to innovations in ceramics and the invention of the crucible. This wasn't just crafting. It was the world's first high-temperature chemical engineering project. But pure copper had its limits. It was soft and didn't hold an edge for long. The next great chapter in our story wasn't about finding a new metal, but about creating one. Welcome to the Bronze Age. Someone, somewhere, discovered that by adding a small amount of another, much rarer metal tin to molten copper, you could create something entirely new: bronze. This new alloy was a complete game-changer. It was harder, more durable, and could be cast into far more sophisticated shapes. It gave us superior swords, stronger armor, and more resilient tools. This wasn't a lucky accident. It was the birth of alloy design. Smiths learned to control the recipe, adding more or less tin to get exactly the properties they wanted. A little tin made the bronze flow better for intricate casting. A bit more made it harder, perfect for the sharp edge of a sword or an axe. This required not just skill, but a vast network of trade. Tin was scarce, and sourcing it meant establishing complex trade routes that spanned continents, connecting distant cultures in a shared pursuit of better material. To shape this new wonder metal, they perfected incredible manufacturing techniques. Lost wax casting, for example, allowed them to create stunningly intricate, hollow statues and artifacts. This process involved sculpting a model in wax, encasing it in clay, melting the wax out, and then pouring molten bronze into the empty space. It was a multi-step, high-precision process that demanded incredible skill and a deep understanding of how the materials behaved at every stage. For 2,000 years, bronze reigned supreme. But another, far more common element was waiting in the wings. Iron. Iron is one of the most abundant metals on Earth, but unlocking its potential was a colossal challenge. Its melting point is much higher than copper's, beyond the reach of early furnaces. Early iron production, starting around 1200 BCE, didn't create a liquid metal. Instead, bloomery furnaces produced a spongy, porous mass of iron mixed with impurities, called a bloom. This bloom had to be painstakingly hammered for hours, while red-hot to consolidate the metal and force out the slag. The result was wrought iron stronger than bronze, but still relatively soft. The true secret, the discovery that would change the world forever, was steel. Ancient smiths discovered that by repeatedly heating the iron in a charcoal fire and hammering it, the iron would absorb carbon from the fuel. This process, carburization, transformed soft iron into hard steel. A steel sword could hold an edge that would slice through bronze armor. It was a revolution in warfare, in agriculture, and in construction. Different cultures became masters of this new dark art. The Hittites were among the first to harness iron's power, guarding their techniques as a state secret. The Celts of Europe became legendary for their pattern-welded swords, forging together different types of iron and steel to create blades of incredible strength and flexibility. But perhaps the most breathtaking achievement in ancient steelmaking came from India. From around the 6th century BCE, smiths there created wootz steel, a material of myth and legend, later known in the West as Damascus steel. This was a crucible steel, made by sealing iron and carbon sources in a small clay crucible and heating it slowly for days. This process allowed the iron to become saturated with carbon in a very controlled way, creating a steel with a unique internal microstructure. When forged, this structure created the beautiful watery patterns famous on Damascus blades. These blades weren't just beautiful. They were legendarily sharp and resilient. The science behind wootz steel was so advanced that its secrets were lost for centuries, and modern scientists are still studying it to understand exactly how they did it. This was, without exaggeration, an early form of nanoscale engineering. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, ancient China was on a completely different, but equally sophisticated path. By the Han Dynasty, around 2,000 years ago, Chinese metallurgists had developed blast furnaces capable of reaching temperatures high enough to fully melt iron. This allowed them to produce cast iron, centuries before it was common in Europe. Cast iron, with its high carbon content, is brittle but can be poured into molds to create complex shapes. This enabled the mass production of everything from plowshares that transformed agriculture to intricate architectural pieces for pagodas. The Chinese also perfected a co-fusion process, melting brittle cast iron together with tougher wrought iron to produce a high-quality, medium carbon steel, a perfect blend of properties. Their innovations in furnace technology, particularly the invention of better bellows to pump air, gave them unprecedented control over their metallurgy. From the first hammered copper trinket to the legendary wootz steel blade, the journey of ancient metallurgy is a testament to human ingenuity. These ancient masters weren't just blacksmiths. They were the world's first materials scientists. They observed, they experimented, and they innovated, laying the conceptual and practical groundwork for the entire modern world. Every skyscraper, every jet engine, every microchip owes a debt to these pioneers who dared to master fire and metal. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the history of technology. See you next time, but to uncover the secret science that built them. We often think of the Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age as simple steps in a ladder of progress. But the reality is far more complex, and frankly, much more brilliant. Ancient artisans weren't just banging on rocks and metals. They were the world's first materials scientists, conducting experiments that would lay the foundation for our modern world. Let's start by looking beyond the big three: copper, bronze, and iron. Did you know about electrum? It's a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver, and the ancients loved it. Depending on the ratio of gold to silver, its color and hardness would change. This wasn't just decorative. It was an early form of custom material design, used for everything from the first coins to stunning jewelry. They understood that by mixing metals, you could create something entirely new, with properties better than its individual parts. This idea of combining materials to create something superior was mastered by the Romans. We've all marveled at structures like the Colosseum and the Pantheon, which have stood for 2 millennia. Their secret weapon? A revolutionary form of concrete. Roman engineers were material geniuses. They didn't just use one recipe. They experimented with different aggregates, like stones and broken tiles, and even used a special volcanic ash called pozzolana. This allowed them to create concrete with varying strengths and densities. For the foundations, they'd use a heavy, dense mix. For the soaring domes, they'd use a lighter version with pumice. This is the very definition of a composite material, a principle we still use today in high-tech applications like carbon fiber. They were building with a level of sophistication we often mistakenly attribute only to the modern era. But it wasn't just about mixing things together. The real magic happened in the fire. The control of heat was one of the most critical skills an ancient smith possessed. They discovered, through countless generations of trial and error, that heat could fundamentally transform a metal. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. They knew that heating a piece of steel to a glowing red and then plunging it into cold water, a process we call quenching, would make it incredibly hard and strong, perfect for holding a sharp edge. But a super hard metal is also brittle. So they developed another technique: annealing. By heating the metal again, but this time letting it cool down very slowly, they could make it softer and more workable, less likely to shatter on impact. These smiths might not have known about crystal microstructures and atomic lattice, but their hands and eyes knew exactly how to manipulate them. They were performing advanced metallurgy, achieving the perfect balance between hardness and toughness. This empirical knowledge is the direct ancestor of the heat treatment processes that are absolutely fundamental to modern manufacturing today. So, how did they know if they'd succeeded? How did they test their creations without modern lab equipment? They developed their own clever methods of quality control. An experienced smith could tell the quality of a sword just by its ring. They'd listen to the tone and sustain of the sound when it was struck, which gave them clues about its internal structure and an absence of flaws. They'd examine how a metal broke, observing the fracture patterns to judge its grain. These weren't quantitative tests, but they were a systematic, empirical way of ensuring consistency and quality. This systematic approach extended to the entire production process. They knew that the final product was only as good as the starting materials. They carefully selected the best ores, understood which types of charcoal burned hottest and cleanest, and meticulously designed their furnaces to control airflow and temperature. This wasn't just a craft. It was a science. It was a clear recognition that process parameters directly impact the final product. S properties, a core principle of all modern engineering. The impact of these metallurgical advancements was nothing short of revolutionary. Think about it. Stronger, sharper weapons and more resilient armor completely changed the face of warfare, allowing empires to expand and defend their borders. On the home front, more durable tools transformed everything. Iron plows allowed farmers to cultivate tougher soils, increasing food production and supporting larger populations. Stronger axes and saws meant better construction, leading to more complex buildings and infrastructure. The ability to cast large, intricate metal objects opened up new possibilities for art, engineering, and even early mechanical devices. The economic and social power that came from mastering materials cannot be overstated. It was the engine of ancient civilization. But here's a fascinating and slightly sobering twist in the story. Knowledge is fragile. Some of this incredible ancient technology was actually lost to time. One of the most famous examples is root steel from India. This legendary crucible steel, known for its distinctive patterned surface and superior sharpness, was a highly sought-after commodity. But the secret to making it was so closely guarded that, eventually, the recipe was lost for centuries. It wasn't an isolated case. In China, metallurgists developed highly advanced blast furnaces and a co-fusion process to make steel, centuries ahead of similar developments in the West. Yet, this knowledge didn't immediately spread. Even basic ironworking skills declined in some regions during periods of social upheaval. This reminds us that technological progress isn't a straight, unbroken line. It requires a continuous chain of transmission, innovation, and a stable society to nurture it. The Dark Ages weren't just a period of social change, but also a time when critical technical knowledge was forgotten, only to be painstakingly rediscovered centuries later. The rediscovery of these principles, often independently by different cultures, underscores their fundamental importance. And their legacy is all around us. The ancient idea that mixing elements creates superior materials is the very cornerstone of modern metallurgy. Today, we don't just have bronze and steel. We have thousands of specialized alloys. Stainless steel in your kitchen, titanium alloys in medical implants, and superalloys in jet engines all descend from that first ancient insight. The principles of heat treatment, quenching and annealing, are still taught in every introductory materials science course. We've refined them, but the core concept remains unchanged from the ancient forge. And what about Roman concrete? Their understanding of composite materials lives on. When you see a Formula One car made of carbon fiber reinforced polymer, or a modern building using fiber reinforced concrete, you're seeing a direct intellectual descendant of the Roman engineers who mixed volcanic ash into their cement. So, when we look back at the ancient smith, we shouldn't see a simple laborer. We should see an early scientist. We should see an experimenter who was pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Whether they were seeking military dominance, agricultural abundance, or the ability to create breathtaking art, they were driven by a desire to understand and control the physical world. Their forges were their laboratories, and their empirical discoveries built the practical foundation upon which all of modern material science rests. In conclusion, ancient metallurgy was so much more than a rudimentary craft. It was the sophisticated dawn of material engineering. From the first bronze alloys to the complex steels of India and China, and the heat-treated iron of master smiths, our ancestors were intentionally designing and creating materials with superior properties. They laid the groundwork for modern alloy design, composite materials, and heat treatment. It proves that the quest to master the world around us, to take the raw stuff of the earth and transform it into something new and better, is a deeply human and deeply ancient scientific journey. They weren't just building their world, they were predicting ours. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the science of the past. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more journeys into the history of technology and science. Let me know in the comments which ancient technology you find most amazing. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered what the ancestor of your hard drive or cloud storage looks like? Before we could store terabytes of data with a single click, ancient civilizations were already tackling the challenge of information overload. Forget digital databases for a moment, and let's travel back in time to discover the incredible, ingenious, and surprisingly familiar ways our ancestors managed their data. This is the story of the world's first databases, and trust me, it's more fascinating than you might think. Our journey begins in Mesopotamia, around 3500 BCE. The Sumerians and Akkadians invented cuneiform, one of the earliest forms of writing. But what did they write about? Not epic poems at first. They were recording data. Thousands upon thousands of clay tablets were meticulously inscribed with records of grain harvests, livestock counts, land sales, legal contracts, and tax payments. These weren't just random piles of clay. They were vast, organized archives. Think of them as the world's first spreadsheets, etched in stone. These archives were often organized by subject, date, or administrative department. Scribes weren't just writers. They were highly trained data managers. Their job was to categorize and retrieve specific pieces of information from a massive collection of tablets. This ability was absolutely crucial for running the complex economies and governments of a burgeoning civilization. It was big data, ancient style. One of the most jaw-dropping examples of this is the legendary library of Ashurbanipal. Discovered in the ruins of Nineveh in modern-day Iraq, this 7th century BCE library housed over 30,000 clay tablets. And it wasn't just tax records. It contained historical texts, medical encyclopedias, magical incantations, and literary masterpieces like the Epic of Gilgamesh. What's truly remarkable is how it was organized. Tablets were cataloged by subject matter, and many had something called a colophon. This was like the metadata of today. It listed the tablet's title, the scribe's name, and its place in a larger series, like Tablet 3 of 12. This systematic classification and indexing is the direct ancestor of modern library science and the database indexes that make your Google searches so fast. The sheer scale of collecting, preserving, and organizing knowledge shows a profound, ancient understanding of information's immense value. Meanwhile, in ancient Egypt, a different medium was taking hold: papyrus. Scribes were the backbone of Egyptian society, documenting everything from the pharaoh's decrees and temple inventories to complex medical procedures and beautiful literature. Papyrus scrolls were lighter and more compact than clay tablets, and you could write much longer texts on them. While more fragile, they were the ancient equivalent of upgrading from a bulky desktop to a sleek laptop. And of course, we have to talk about the legendary Library of Alexandria. Though tragically lost to history, it was said to hold hundreds of thousands of scrolls, representing the collected knowledge of the entire ancient world. The very existence of such an institution implies a massive state-sponsored effort to acquire, copy, catalog, and preserve information. It was the ultimate research library, a precursor to today's digital archives and global information networks. Can you imagine the systems they must have had in place just to know what they had and where to find it? Now let's jump over to the Roman Empire, the champions of administrative efficiency. The Romans kept extensive records of everything. I mean everything. Births, deaths, marriages, land ownership, military service, legal cases. It was all meticulously documented on wax tablets, papyrus, and eventually the codex, which was an early form of the book. The Romans essentially conducted a regular census, a massive data collection project spanning their entire empire. And this wasn't just for fun. This data was vital. They used it for taxation, for military conscription, and for planning massive public works projects like aqueducts and roads. The need to quickly access this information for governing and legal battles drove the development of highly organized archival systems. The Roman legal code itself was a gigantic, intricate body of text. To make it usable, it required systematic indexing and cross-referencing, allowing lawyers and judges to find relevant precedents. In essence, it functioned like a relational database for the law, linking different cases and statutes together. Our final stop takes us to ancient China, where keeping official histories and administrative records was a fundamental part of imperial governance. For centuries, each dynasty compiled exhaustive histories of the one before it, documenting political events, social changes, and scientific breakthroughs. This created a continuous, unbroken chain of recorded history. At first, they wrote on strips of bamboo tied together, then on silk, and eventually on a groundbreaking invention: paper. The sheer volume of these records, especially after the invention of paper, demanded increasingly sophisticated classification systems. But the real game changer was printing. Woodblock printing, developed as early as the Tang Dynasty, allowed for the mass production of texts. This was a revolution. It amplified both the opportunity and the challenge of managing information. Suddenly, knowledge could be spread more widely and cheaply than ever before, marking a critical step towards mass information dissemination in the information age we live in today. So the next time you save a file to the cloud or search a digital archive, take a moment to remember these ancient pioneers. From the Sumerian scribe cataloging grain on a clay tablet, to the Alexandrian librarian preserving a papyrus scroll, to the Roman official recording a census, and the Chinese scholar compiling a dynastic history. They were all part of a long, unbroken story, the human quest to organize, preserve, and access knowledge. The tools have changed, but the fundamental drive remains the same. The principles they established laid the groundwork for our entire modern information ecosystem. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into the hidden histories of our world. See you next time. Have you ever thought about what a database looked like 5,000 years ago? Forget silicon chips and servers for a moment. Instead, picture shelves of clay tablets, intricate knotted cords, and vast libraries of papyrus scrolls. The challenges we face today with big data aren't new. In fact, our ancient ancestors were tackling the very same problems, just with different tools. And their solutions were so ingenious, they laid the very foundation for our digital world. Let's travel back in time. Long before official archives, the ancient Greeks were masters of mental data management. They developed something called the method of loci, or the memory palace. Imagine building a detailed palace inside your mind and placing specific pieces of information in each room. To recall something, you simply take a mental stroll through your palace. This wasn't just a party trick. It was a powerful internal database, allowing orators and philosophers to remember epic poems and complex arguments flawlessly. It was the first step towards structuring information, not on a tablet, but within the human mind itself. But what if you needed to store information physically, without writing? The Inca Empire had an incredible solution: the quipu. These were complex arrangements of knotted cords, where the color of the string, the type of knot, and its position all held specific meaning. Think of it as a 3D spreadsheet. Specially trained experts, the quipu cameoks, could read these knotted records to track census data, manage tax collection, and even record historical narratives. It was a sophisticated, multi-dimensional database system that proves writing isn't the only way to store and retrieve complex information. Of course, once you have a massive collection of records, like in the great libraries of Mesopotamia or Egypt, how do you find anything? This led to one of the most important inventions in data management: indexing. Ancient librarians didn't just stack tablets randomly. They created catalog tablets that described the contents of other tablets, essentially creating metadata. They used labels and categories to create a hierarchical, cross-referenced system. Sound familiar? It's the exact same principle behind the file folders on your computer and the databases that power the internet today. The need to find a needle in a haystack drove them to invent the very map to the haystack. With valuable information comes the need for security. How did they protect their data? For one, scribes made multiple copies of important documents. Think of it as an ancient backup system. To ensure authenticity and prevent tampering, they used clay seals on documents, like a physical password. And for confidential messages, they even developed early forms of cryptography. Julius Caesar famously used a simple substitution cipher to protect his military communications. They understood that information was power, and that power needed to be protected from loss, corruption, and prying eyes. However, these ancient systems were fragile. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is a legendary example of catastrophic data loss. Entire civilizations' worth of knowledge, science, and literature vanished in smoke. When an empire declined, the skills to read its records, like certain cuneiform scripts or the Inca quipus, could be lost for centuries. It took modern scholars immense effort to decipher these lost languages. It's a chilling reminder that without robust preservation, knowledge is fleeting, and the infrastructure holding it can easily crumble. So, how does all this connect to the databases we use every single day? The parallels are astonishing. A modern database is simply an organized collection of structured data. An ancient archive of clay tablets is exactly the same. A collection of structured records, stored physically, with systems for organization and retrieval. The fields in a database, like name or date, had their counterparts in the standardized formats of administrative tablets that recorded harvests or taxes. Even the concept of big data has ancient roots. Imagine being a Roman administrator trying to manage a sprawling empire. You have census data from millions of people, logistical records from massive armies, and centuries of legal precedents. The sheer scale of information was immense. While they used scribes and scrolls instead of servers and algorithms, the fundamental challenge of processing, storing, and making sense of vast datasets was exactly the same. They were the original data scientists, wrestling with imperial-scale information overload. From Mesopotamia's clay archives to the Incas' knotted cords, ancient civilizations weren't just storing information. They were building the conceptual framework for our future. They developed systems for indexing, cross-referencing, security, and large-scale management that are the direct ancestors of modern information science. The human drive to collect, organize, and access knowledge isn't a recent phenomenon. It's a deep and ancient impulse that has been shaping our world for millennia. The digital age didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was predicted and prepared for, one clay tablet and one knotted string at a time. Thanks so much for watching and journeying back in time with us. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden history of our modern world. See you in the next one. Did you know that your smartphone, your high-definition TV, and even your favorite IMAX movie have roots that stretch back thousands of years? It sounds crazy, but it's true. In a world buzzing with virtual reality and crystal-clear audio, it's easy to think of multimedia as a modern invention. But the human desire to capture and project light and sound is an ancient story, filled with ingenious technologies that were way ahead of their time. Ancient civilizations weren't just observing the world. They were actively manipulating it. They developed incredible optical and acoustic tools that uncannily foreshadowed the very principles of modern multimedia. From sophisticated lenses and early forms of sound amplification to clever theatrical effects, these ancient innovations laid the groundwork for everything from cameras and loudspeakers to the immersive cinematic experiences we love today. This isn't just a history lesson. It's the story of humanity's timeless quest to shape our own sensory world. So let's travel back in time and uncover the surprisingly ancient origins of our modern multimedia life. Let's start with light. The desire to see the world differently, to magnify it, or to project it, is an ancient one. One of the earliest and most fascinating artifacts is the Nimrud lens. Discovered in ancient Assyria, modern-day Iraq, this piece of polished rock crystal dates back to around 750 BCE. It's a simple, beautifully crafted object, but its purpose has sparked a lot of debate. Was it a magnifying glass, helping a scribe read tiny cuneiform script? Or maybe it was a burning glass, used to start fires by focusing sunlight a pretty neat survival tool. Some even suggest it was just a decorative inlay. Whatever its true function, its existence proves that over 2,700 years ago, people understood that a curved, transparent surface could bend light in useful ways. This wasn't an isolated discovery. Later, in ancient Greece and Rome, writers like Seneca the Younger described a similar, more accessible technology. He wrote about how glass spheres filled with water could make small letters appear larger and clearer. This was, in essence, the world's first pair of reading glasses. Seneca also noted that these same spheres could concentrate sunlight into a powerful hot beam. So, the principles behind both magnification and a magnifying glass as ability to start a fire were well known long before the modern era. These early experiments with lenses were the first baby steps toward a much deeper understanding of the world of optics. The real breakthrough, however, came during the Islamic Golden Age. This is where we meet the legendary Iraqi scientist Ibn al-Haytham, often called the father of optics. Living in the 10th and 11th centuries, al-Haytham wasn't just observing things. He was a rigorous experimental scientist. His book of optics was a game changer. For centuries, people believed that vision worked by our eyes, shooting out invisible rays. Al-Haytham proved this wrong. He correctly described vision as the process of light entering the eye from an object. It seems obvious to us now, but at the time, it was a revolutionary idea that he backed up with meticulous experiments. He built and studied what we now call the camera obscura, or pinhole camera. He demonstrated how a tiny hole in a darkened room or box could project an inverted image of the outside world onto the opposite wall. This wasn't just a cool party trick. It was a profound demonstration of how light travels in straight lines and carries visual information. Al-Haytham's work laid the scientific foundation for so much of what we take for granted today. His detailed analysis of reflection, refraction, and the properties of lenses directly influenced Renaissance thinkers like Leonardo da Vinci and later scientists, paving the way for the invention of the telescope, the microscope, and of course, the photographic camera. Without Al-Haytham, our visual world would look very, very different. Now, what about projection? The idea of throwing images onto a screen for an audience, I send to a new concept born in a movie theater. It has ancient, artistic roots. One of the earliest forms of this was shadow puppetry. Originating in Asia, possibly in India or China, as far back as the first millennium BCE, shadow puppetry is a beautiful and simple form of storytelling. Using a light source, like a candle or an oil lamp, puppeteers would cast the silhouettes of intricately carved figures onto a translucent screen. This was entertainment, art, and communication all rolled into one. It demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of light, shadow, and how to create a visual narrative for an audience. It was, in a very real sense, the world's first cinema, captivating audiences with moving shadows and stories long before the first film was ever shot. And while the camera obscura, which we mentioned earlier, wasn't initially used for entertainment, it represents a crucial step in the history of projection. The observation, possibly known even to Aristotle, that a complete, full-color image of the outside world could be projected onto an indoor surface, was a mind-blowing discovery. It proved that light itself was a medium that carried pictures. This optical phenomenon fascinated scholars and artists for centuries. It was the direct physical precursor to photography and cinematography, a natural projector that showed the potential for capturing and displaying the world around us. It was the ancient world whispering a secret that would one day lead to Hollywood. Of course, multimedia isn't just about what we see. It's also about what we hear. And just like with optics, the ancient world's mastery of sound is nothing short of astonishing. If you've ever seen pictures of an ancient Greek or Roman theater, you might have just thought it was a cool-looking stadium. But these structures were acoustic marvels, engineered with a level of precision that still impresses sound engineers today. These massive open-air amphitheaters could seat thousands of people, yet an actor on stage could be heard clearly all the way in the back row, without a single microphone or speaker. How did they do it? It was all in the design. They were often carved into hillsides, which naturally helped contain and direct the sound. The seating, arranged in a steep semicircular curve, wasn't just for a good view. It was an acoustic strategy. This shape minimized echoes and created natural focal points, concentrating the actor's voice and projecting it outwards. The stage itself was backed by a large stone building called the skene, which acted as a giant soundboard, reflecting the sound back towards the audience instead of letting it drift away. Every angle and surface was designed to maximize sound propagation. There's even a fascinating, though debated, theory about acoustic vases. Ancient texts mention that some Greek theaters may have had bronze or clay resonators or vases embedded within the seating areas. The idea was that these vases were tuned to specific frequencies. They would resonate with the actor's voice, amplifying certain tones to make speech clearer, or perhaps absorbing unwanted background noise. While clear archaeological evidence is hard to come by, the very concept shows how deeply they were thinking about controlling the sonic environment. This empirical, intuitive grasp of architectural acoustics is the direct ancestor of modern concert hall design. Today, we use computer models and advanced materials to achieve the perfect sound, but the fundamental goals, clarity, richness, and immersion, were first mastered thousands of years ago with just stone, geometry, and a brilliant understanding of physics. So, from a simple polished crystal in ancient Assyria to the grand amphitheaters of Greece, the foundations of our multimedia world were laid long before the digital age. The ancient innovators who experimented with lenses, who told stories with shadows, and who built theaters that could carry a whisper to a crowd of thousands, were the pioneers of an age-old human endeavor, the quest to harness light and sound to communicate, to entertain, and to understand our world. They proved that the drive to shape our sensory experience is a deeply ancient and enduring part of who we are. Next time you snap a photo, watch a movie, or listen to music on a perfectly engineered sound system, take a moment to remember these ancient geniuses. Our modern technology is not a sudden invention, but the latest chapter in a story that began thousands of years ago. It's a story of curiosity, creativity, and the timeless magic of light and sound. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories of our world. We'll see you in the next one. Today, we're journeying back in time, way back, to uncover a story that's been hiding in plain sight. We often think of multimedia, movies, VR, all this amazing tech we have as a modern invention. But what if I told you that the seeds of our digital world were planted thousands of years ago? It's true. Ancient civilizations weren't just building pyramids and writing philosophies. They were pioneering the very concepts of light and sound manipulation that define our lives today. Get ready, because we're about to explore the incredible, lost technologies that predicted our multimedia future. Let's start with something we all take for granted: the camera. The journey begins not with a digital sensor, but with a simple observation. Over 1,000 years ago, in the heart of the Islamic Golden Age, a brilliant scholar named Ibn al-Haytham, known in the West as Alhazen, was conducting experiments in a dark room. He noticed that light, passing through a tiny pinhole, projected an inverted image of the world outside onto the opposite wall. This wasn't just a curious trick of the light. This was the birth of the camera obscura, the dark room. Al-Haytham didn't just observe it. He systematically studied it, writing down the principles of how light travels in straight lines and forms images. He was, in essence, writing the first chapter in the history of photography and cinema. He understood that to capture the world, you first had to understand how to project it. But the idea of projecting images is even older. Imagine sitting in a dimly lit room, captivated by glowing figures dancing across a screen, telling epic tales of heroes and gods. This wasn't the latest animated movie. This was shadow puppetry, an art form that flourished across Asia, from China to India to Indonesia. Using translucent figures made from animal hide and a simple light source like a candle or an oil lamp, artists created entire worlds of light and shadow. They were masters of visual storytelling, manipulating focus, size, and movement to create drama and emotion. They understood that a simple silhouette could be more powerful than a detailed painting. This was projection art in its earliest, most elegant form, the direct ancestor of our cinema projectors and digital displays. They were crafting immersive visual narratives, proving that all you need to create magic is a light, a screen, and a great story. And it wasn't just about projecting images. Ancient cultures were also fascinated with bending light itself. Think about the Nimrud lens, an artifact unearthed in modern-day Iraq, dating back almost 3,000 years. This piece of polished rock crystal, whether it was used as a magnifying glass to read tiny text, a fire starter, or just a piece of decoration, shows a fundamental understanding of optics. It proves that people were already shaping materials to manipulate light long before the invention of eyeglasses or telescopes. They were exploring the very properties of light that would eventually lead to the lenses in our cameras, microscopes, and VR headsets. This ancient curiosity, this desire to see the world differently, bigger, clearer, closer, is the same drive that pushes our own technological boundaries today. The first step towards capturing a high-definition image was learning how to bend a single ray of light. Now, let's switch from sight to sound. The ancient Greeks were absolute masters of acoustics, and their theaters are a testament to their genius. If you've ever stood in the center of the ancient theater at Epidaurus and whispered, you'll know what I'm talking about. Your voice can be heard perfectly clearly by someone sitting in the very last row, nearly 200 feet away, without any microphones or speakers. How did they do it? It was all in the design. The semicircular rows of limestone seats weren't just for seating. They were a sophisticated acoustic filter. The corrugated surface of the stone absorbed low-frequency background noise, like the rustling of the crowd, while reflecting the high-frequency sounds of the actors' voices directly to the audience. It was an incredible feat of engineering, creating a perfect audio experience for tens of thousands of people using nothing but stone and geometry. This wasn't just architecture. It was acoustic science, the blueprint for every modern concert hall and recording studio. But communication with sound went far beyond the theater. Across Africa, cultures developed talking drums. These weren't just for rhythm. They were a complex form of long-distance communication. Drummers could replicate the tones and cadences of their language, sending intricate messages across vast distances faster than any messenger on foot. A message about a birth, a death, or a call to a meeting could travel for miles, pass from one village to the next. This was the original wireless network. It shows an incredible understanding of how sound can carry codified information. They were essentially turning speech into a percussive code, a direct precursor to everything from the telegraph, Morse code, to the digital signals that carry our phone calls today. The idea of encoding and transmitting information through sound waves isn't a modern concept. It's an ancient one. Even the simple idea of directing sound has ancient roots. While we might think of pipes and tubes as plumbing, ancient inventors saw their potential for sound. The Greek engineer Hero of Alexandria, who lived in the 1st century AD, was a master of mechanical contraptions. In his writings, he describes devices like a singing bird automaton, which used water and air pressure to push air through tiny pipes, creating a chirping sound. He was essentially creating programmed sound effects. This demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how to generate and channel sound for a specific purpose. This is the very beginning of sound design, the early ancestor of the Foley artists and sound engineers, who create the auditory worlds of our favorite films and video games. They were learning to control sound, not just for music, but for creating specific artificial effects. And what happens when you combine these two worlds, light and sound? You get the earliest form of the immersive experiences we crave today. Think about ancient religious rituals or theatrical performances. They were never just one thing. They were a carefully orchestrated synthesis of sensory inputs. Imagine a dramatic play unfolding in a Greek theater. You have the actor's words, amplified perfectly by the architecture. You have music from lyres and flutes setting the mood. And as the sun sets, torches are lit, casting flickering shadows and illuminating the actors' faces, creating suspense and drama. This combination of visual spectacle and carefully engineered sound was designed to create a powerful, emotional experience that enveloped the audience. It was a multi-sensory event. This ancient instinct to merge light and sound to tell a more powerful story is the direct ancestor of everything from opera to blockbuster movies and immersive VR. It's fascinating to think about how much of this incredible knowledge was fragmented or even lost over time, only to be rediscovered centuries later. The optical principles that Al-Haytham documented weren't fully integrated into European science until the Renaissance. The acoustic secrets of Greek theaters weren't truly understood until modern scientists could analyze them with advanced equipment. This shows us that human knowledge isn't a straight line of progress. It's a complex web of discovery, loss, and rediscovery across different cultures and eras. The ancient world held keys to our future, but we had to find them all over again. So what does all this mean for us, here in our hyper-connected, media-saturated world? It means that the fundamental principles we rely on are profoundly ancient. Al-Haytham's study of the pinhole camera is the foundation for every digital camera sensor. The Greeks' mastery of acoustics still guides the design of our best performance venues. The desire to capture and reproduce sound, seen in the earliest flutes and drums, is the same desire that led to microphones, speakers, and digital audio. The thread that connects an ancient shadow play to a modern IMAX film is our unbroken human drive to create immersive sensory experiences, to shape light and sound to tell stories, evoke emotion, and build new realities. In the end, the technologies of the ancient world were far more than simple curiosities. They were the vibrant, ingenious origins of multimedia. From the magnifying power of the Nimrod lens to the acoustic perfection of Epidaurus, and from the visual storytelling of shadow puppets to the scientific rigor of Al-Haytham, these ancient achievements laid the conceptual and practical groundwork for our modern world. They prove that the human drive to master our senses and tell stories with light and sound is a timeless endeavor. The ancients didn't just build the past, they truly did predict our future. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden history of technology. Let me know in the comments which ancient technology blew your mind the most. See you in the next one. As our journey through the annals of antiquity draws to a close, we stand at a profound realization. The past isn't just a collection of dusty relics. It's a vibrant tapestry of ingenuity that fundamentally shaped our present and predicted our future. We began this exploration by challenging the idea that advanced innovation is a modern phenomenon. And what we've uncovered has been nothing short of astounding. From the intricate gears of the Antikythera mechanism to the self-healing marvel of Roman concrete, from the earliest robotic automatons to the ethical codes of ancient medicine. In every domain, our ancestors were not just living in their time, they were gazing into ours. These breakthroughs weren't accidents. They were the products of relentless human curiosity and a drive to solve problems. Whether it was the need to understand the stars for agriculture, build lasting empires, heal the sick, or communicate across vast distances, ancient minds applied the best available knowledge with astonishing creativity. They understood fundamental principles of mechanics, chemistry, and mathematics that we sometimes mistakenly assume are recent discoveries. The story of these ancient innovations is also a cautionary tale about how fragile knowledge can be. Many of these sophisticated techniques were lost or forgotten. The decline of empires and the destruction of libraries often meant that future generations had to painstakingly rediscover what had once been common knowledge. This shows just how vital it is to preserve and share what we learn. What truly binds these achievements together is their predictive quality. They were, in essence, prophecies in stone and metal. The Antikythera mechanism was an analog computer predicting our digital age. Roman concrete foreshadowed our quest for sustainable, self-healing materials. Ancient automatons were the first whispers of artificial intelligence. The Hippocratic Oath laid the ethical bedrock for modern healthcare. Ancient communication networks, from fire beacons to runners, were the precursors to our global internet. The grid plans of Mohenjo-Daro and Roman aqueducts were the blueprints for smart cities. These connections aren't just coincidences. They reflect fundamental human desires that are constant throughout history. The drive to automate, to build, to heal, to connect, to organize, and to explore. Ancient civilizations provided the earliest and often surprisingly effective answers to these challenges. They established the conceptual frameworks that would slowly, cumulatively, lead to the technological world of today. So, as you navigate your modern life with its instant communication, advanced medicine, and powerful computers, take a moment to reflect. Recognize the echoes of ancient brilliance in every part of your world. Understand that the future we inhabit was not conjured from nothing, but was built upon the profound insights and audacious dreams of those who came before us. Their foresight was a blueprint for human progress, a testament to the timeless capacity of the human spirit to innovate. The ancient world wasn't just an origin. It was a profound prediction. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the hidden marvels of antiquity. I hope it has offered a new perspective on how deeply intertwined our present is with the ingenious past. If you enjoyed this exploration, please remember to like this video, share it, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's forgotten brilliance. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the boundless ingenuity of humanity.